started to get in the very leader of the state, you saw an opportunity to attract more semiconductor supply chain businesses, and you signed a law to make New York even more welcoming. We were down in Poughkeepsie not long ago. A little outfit called IBM spending $20 billion investing in incredible jobs and attracting companies and creating jobs. A century ago, this region was the heartland of manufacturing. And when I was up here as a law student, we had Kodak, Corning, General Electric. The governor's always believed it could be that way again. She thought that would be the case, and the region is poised to lead the world in advanced manufacturing. Not a joke. Poised to lead the world. I also want to thank my buddy Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader. This guy gets it. First, our hometown girl, a senator from upstate New York, Kristen Gillibrand. Kristen calls and asks something, just say yes. Just do it right away, because you're going to do that anyway. Now look, it's a hell of a delegation. I think it's one of the best delegations in the country. Chuck is a great majority leader. We wouldn't be here today. It's not hyperbole. We wouldn't be here today without him. And Kristen, as I said, hometown here in upstate New York. She's a fighter for families in this area. And you'll be hearing from all these folks in a minute. Congressman John Katko. Where's John? I like him a lot. John and I have been in the Congress for a long time, and we used to have, this is how we used to be. We used to work together like you work together. And with the delegation, thank you very much. I'm quite frankly, I'm sorry to leave you. And, thanks for the past 2 years, and thanks for reaching across the aisle to support the Chips and Science, which this guy wrote. We also have one of the leading members of the United States Congress, Chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Adam Schiff. He came all the way from California to see Chuck. Adam and I talked together about we can't share any secrets with us. He's the only guy who can talk. Folks, we're here to celebrate one of the most significant investments in American history. Again, not hyperbole. One of the most significant investments in American history. And it's going to ensure that the future is made in America. It should give us a sense of optimism and hope about who we are as a nation. And it's part of a broader story about an economy we're building, and one that works for everyone. It positions America, put America in a position to win the economic competition of the 21st century. And again, that's not an exaggeration. It's literally an accurate statement. We're joined today by the CEO of Micron to celebrate their commitment to invest $100 billion. Chips that power everything in our everyday lives, from our smartphones, to our automobiles, to washing machines, hospital equipment, you name it. It's the largest American investment of its kind ever in our history. The size of, this is not hyperbole, the size of 40 football fields. Big enough to fit the carrier down 4 times inside it, and still have space left over. This is amazing what's going to happen here. You guys have no idea. It's going to run, and it's going to run entirely on renewable energy. 9,000 jobs. HVAC technicians, machine operators with an average salary of $100,000 a year. There are tens of thousands more jobs across the supply chain. 20 unions working together to build jobs for technicians, construction workers, electricians, operating engineers. And by the way, it's the largest investment in American history that's also governed by a project labor agreement. It's a fancy way of saying union. Union, not labor, union. They ensure that the major projects are handled by well-trained, well-prepared contractors, subcontractors, and highly skilled workers. These agreements make the construction a top-notch project because they're the best folks to do it. Their projects are on time, on task, and on budget. Back in February, I signed an executive order to make sure large federal construction projects use project labor agreements. And it means that Micron is using one here as well. Micron is also paying a prevailing wage for funding apprenticeships programs. So folks can get trained in places like this community college, one of the thousands of good paying jobs in this nation. And it really matters. It matters a lot. America invested in these chips. The federal investment helped reduce their cost, creating a market and an entire industry that's American-led. You know, that's how it all started. As a result, over 30 years ago, America had more than 30% of the global chip production. 30%. Then something happened. American manufacturing, the backbone of our economy, got hollowed out. Companies moved jobs overseas, from the industrial Midwest, as well as from the Northeast to manufacturing towns like here in central New York and upstate New York. And as a result, today we're down to producing only about 10% of the world's chips. We invented them, but we produce only 10%, despite leading the world in research and design and new chip technology as well. It's here in the United States. But because of the new law I signed and Chuck designed and delivered, we're turning things way around in a very big way. With Micron's $100 billion investment alone, we're going to increase America's share of global memory chips and production by 500%. Intel in Ohio and other companies, including foreign companies, that are investing billions of dollars across America to make these chips here. And it matters to you all, no matter where you are. It matters a great deal. Making these chips in America is going to help lower the cost for families looking to buy a car, to replace your washing machine, get a new cell phone. It also helps companies outcompete the rest of the world. And I've heard from Xi Jinping that he's a little concerned about it. I'm not joking. As I told him, it's not about conflict, it's about competition. We're back in the game. We're competing again. Think about it this way. IBM needs these chips to build the fastest quantum computers ever built in the world at the Kips in New York. Instead of relying on chips made overseas that could be delayed because of a pandemic or some other global supply chain issue, they can get their chips in a few hours. It's a game changer. You know, where is it written that the United States of America can't be the manufacturing capital of the world? Think about this. Where in the hell is it written that says we cannot be, as we've been hearing for the last 25 years, the manufacturing capital of the world? This country lost over 180,000 manufacturing jobs under the last guy that had this job. We've created 700,000 manufacturing jobs on my watch, adding manufacturing jobs at a faster rate than in 40 years. Previous president has broken promises in places like Wisconsin, Indiana, Ohio, where promised investments in jobs and manufacturing never materialized, but layoffs and shuttered factories did materialize. On my watch, we've kept our commitments. On my watch, Made in America isn't just a slogan, it's a reality. Made in America. Here's an example of my economic plan at work. I've said from the beginning that my objective is to build an economy from the bottom up and the middle out. An economy that rewards work, not just wealth. An economy that works for everyone. So the poor have a ladder up, the middle class can do better, and when that happens, the wealthy do very well. They don't get hurt at all, they do very well. It's a fundamental shift, and it's working compared to what the very conservative Republicans are offering these days. Let's just take a look at the facts. When I took office, the economy was in ruins. My predecessor was the first president since Herbert Hoover, not a joke, to lose jobs in the entirety of his administration. First, unemployment when I was sworn in was at 6.4%. Hundreds of thousands of small businesses closed. The irony is that during the pandemic, the record number of Americans became, at the same time we lost all these small companies, the record number of Americans became billionaires in the middle of this crisis. While more than 9 million people were still out of work from the pandemic when I took office. Today, with the help of the people behind me, we're in a much better place. 10 million jobs created since we took office. A record for any administration in American history. Unemployment is at 3.5%, the lowest it's been in 50 years. 5.4 million Americans applied to start small businesses, the highest level ever in American history. And because of the action we've taken, gas prices are declining. We're down $1.25 since the peak this summer, and they've been falling for the last 3 weeks as well. And that ended up real savings for families. Today, the most common price of gas in America is $3.39, down from over $5 when I took office. We need to keep making that progress by having energy companies bring down the cost of a gallon of gas. That reflects the cost they're paying for a barrel of oil. There used to be a direct correlation. Barrel of oil goes down, the price at the pump goes down at the same time. If we're taking average profits they've been making over the last 20 years instead of historic profits they're making today, the price of gas would be down an additional 40%, 40 cents today, to $3 a gallon. And by the way, last quarter, the 5 largest oil companies made, in the last quarter, $70 billion in profit in 90 days. Shell announced just this morning that it made $9.5 billion in profits in the third quarter. $9.5 billion. That's more than twice of what they made in the third quarter of last year. And they raised their dividends as well, so the profits are going back into the shareholders instead of going to the pump and lower the prices. Because if they charge the same amount as they're acting as they did a year ago and 2 years ago, and the price of gas goes down, the price of oil, and the price of oil goes down, the price of gas goes down. And even though my Republican friends in Congress seem to be hoping for a recession, present company excluded. Today, the GDP results came out, and the economy, in fact, is growing. In fact, the economy grew at 2.6% rate last quarter, and although it may not feel like it for everyone, people's incomes went up last quarter more than inflation went up. And enough growth. So, economic growth is up, the price of inflation is down, real incomes are up, and the price of gas is down. Folks continue to spend, but now at a more stable pace than during our rapid recovery last year. Businesses continue to invest in America. Exports are up, which means we're making things here in America and shipping the products overseas instead of shipping jobs overseas and sending them back here. Supply chains are running more smoothly, helping companies build up inventories. Here's another thing. My predecessor promised, and you heard it for 4 years, infrastructure week, seemingly every week for 4 years. But it never got done. It became a punchline when you talk about infrastructure week. Well, on my watch, we turned infrastructure week into the decade of infrastructure and a headline. A once-in-a-generation investment in nation's roads, highways, bridges, railroads, ports, airports, water systems, high-speed internet. And the American people are seeing the benefits of this economy that works for them. Families have more net worth today than they did before the pandemic. Fewer families are behind on their mortgages, their credit card bills, than they were before the pandemic. More Americans have health insurance than before the pandemic. And we're doing everything we can to give folks just a little bit, my dad would say, just a little bit of breathing room. We're giving Medicare the power to negotiate lower drug prices. Folks, we've been trying this for as long as I was in the Congress. We pay the highest price for prescription drugs of anywhere in the world. And I'm talking the exact same prescription made by the exact same drug company, sold in the United States and sold in France. You can buy it probably 30% cheaper in France or Canada, around the world. Where's it written that that's okay? Where does it say that's okay to do? We're capping seniors' out-of-pocket prescriptions starting next year. Prescription drugs, and it's law now, will not have to pay for our Medicare more than $2,000 a year for the prescription. No matter how much it costs. We can get drug costs for $10,000, $12,000, $14,000 a year, like some cancer drugs do cost. And now, Big Pharma tries to raise drug prices faster than inflation. They're going to have to write a check to Medicare to cover the difference. Because there's no rationale for it. Unless they can prove they engage in additional research to improve the product, it's the same exact product, they cannot raise the price beyond the cost of inflation for that particular drug. By the way, put this in perspective, last year the price of 1,200 specific prescription drugs went up faster than inflation. We're going to put a stop to that. From now on, if drug companies rise the price faster than inflation, they're going to have to rebate the money back to Medicare. We're also capping the cost of insulin for seniors on Medicare at $35 per prescription instead of an average $400 a month. We passed tax credits to help families buy energy-efficient appliances, put solar panels on their homes, help them buy an electric vehicle, weatherize their home. Things that are going to save, it's estimated by the utility companies, an average of $500 a year for families, much more if they're to purchase a vehicle. Yesterday, we announced steps my administration is taking to get rid of unfair hidden fees, known as junk fees, that are proliferating. Like surprise banking overdraft fees, an average of $35 for every overdraft. Or credit card late fees, an average of $50. Or if you get on a plane and you want your 2-year-old child to sit next to you, you're going to find out you paid a hell of a lot more for your ticket when you land, before you land. If you find yourself in a position, and it goes on and on and on, all these hidden fees. Well, guess what? These can add up and make taking the real money out of the pockets of ordinary Americans. That's on top of actions we took earlier this month to lower the cost of hearing aids, to make them available over the counter at places like Walgreens and Walmart. This is going to save, on average, $3,000 for a pair of hearing aids for millions of Americans with hearing loss. $3,000. We took action to ease the burden of student debt for millions of working and middle-class families. Our average income $70,000 a family, recovering from the pandemic. My friends in the right Republic, they criticize the move. But I'm never going to apologize for helping working and middle-class families as they recover from the pandemic. Especially after those same folks who voted for a $2 trillion tax cut before I got in office to give away that mainly benefited wealthy Americans and the biggest corporations. Not a penny of it paid for. We're doing all this by reducing the deficit at the same time. I don't want to hear about big spending Democrats creating the deficit. Let me give you the facts. The very deficit reduction that the Republicans voted against when they opposed the Inflation Reduction Act. This year, the deficit under our leadership is falling by $1.4 trillion. Let me say it again. This year alone, the deficit is down to $1.4 trillion. In my first year in office, the deficit fell one year by $350 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, the largest ever one-year cut in American history on the deficit, cut the deficit in half. As I said, it follows a historic drop of $350 billion last year.
We're going to reduce the deficit by another $250 billion over the next decade. Why? A big part of that is because corporations are finally going to have to pay something. 15% minimum tax. You know, in 2000, the year 2000, 55 corporations made $40 billion. God love them, as my mother would say. But they paid zero in federal tax. Zero in federal tax. So guess what? The Inflation Reduction Act, we made sure they have to pay a minimum of 15%. That's less than you guys pay as union members in your tax. That's less than school teachers, firefighters, cops pay. But that 15% increase in the minimum tax is going to make sure we're in good shape for a long time. That's all in stark contrast to Kevin McCarthy, the Republican leader of the House of Representatives, his fellow MAGA Republicans who say the #1 priority is to do the following. And they've said it publicly. By the way, if I had asked you, and we were just walking down the street, so can you tell me what the Republican platform is? What they're for? I'm not joking. I'm being dead earnest. I said I've been around a long time in public life. Republicans usually always have platforms. Say this is what we're for. Well, they can't tell you what they're for, but they'll make sure they'll tell you what they're against. They're going to give the power we just gave to Medicare, lower drug prices, back to Big Pharma and raise prices instead. The cap on the $2,000 cap on prescription drugs for seniors is gone, if Kevin has his way, McCarthy. $35 a month cap on insulin for diabetes for seniors is gone. Savings on health care premiums, $800 a year for literally millions of Americans under the Affordable Care Act, gone. And of course, they're still determined to repeal the Affordable Care Act overall, which would mean that tens of millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions who can't otherwise get insurance will lose even that insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. These protections are gone as well if the Republicans get their way, if Kevin gets their way in the Republican Congress. Tax credits to lower energy bills, gone. Corporate minimum tax, gone. Under the Republican plan, some big corporations are going to go back to paying zero again. That's the plan. I would argue it's reckless and irresponsible and will make inflation worse if they succeed. And then they're coming after Social Security. Now it sounds like, there's why that typical Democrat saying the Republicans are after Social Security. This is the one thing they've said out loud. They've written it down on pieces of paper. Senator Rick Scott, the Republican from Florida, who's in charge of getting Republicans elected to the Senate, has a plan that's laid out. You can look it up. You can, as I used to say, you can Google it. The plan that Congress would give Congress a chance to cut Social Security and Medicare every 5 years. Every 5 years, come up with a ballot. Either gets voted on or gets lost. Every 5 years. It's no longer, there's no such thing as a permanent plan. Every 5 years, you've been paying your Social Security since you were 16 years old on your first paycheck. Senator Ron Johnson, the senator from Wisconsin, he thinks that's taken too long. He wants it done every year. Every year, Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block, every single year. And now they put forward a real ticking time bomb for the country. You're going to hear a lot more about it. Republican leadership in the Congress has said, and made it clear, that if they don't get their way, if I don't vote to shut down, if I don't vote to reduce Social Security and Medicare, if I don't support that, they're going to shut down the government. Refuse to pay America's bills for the first time in American history, to put America in default. Again, read this, that's what they're saying. Unless we yield to the demands to cut Social Security and Medicare, they're determined to cut Social Security and Medicare, and they're willing to take down the economy over. There is nothing that will create more chaos or do more damage to the American economy than that happening if it were to happen. Let me close with this. It's been a rough few years for a lot of people I grew up with, hard-working Americans. A lot of families, things are still tough. But there's some bright spots out there where America is really asserting itself. I've asked CEOs, including Micron and CEOs of many other countries, the following question. When I spoke to the Business Roundtable, spoke to the Chamber of Commerce, National Chamber of Commerce. When the United States government decides to invest considerable resources in a new industry, that we need to build up for our national security and economic well-being? Does that encourage or discourage companies from getting in the game? The overwhelming answer is it encourages them to get in the game. Federal investment attracts private sector investment, particularly in those things we need badly. Our national security depends on us having access to the most modern computer chips in the world. It depends on it. One of the things I've been able to do, and I make no bones about it, because of Russia's activities, we have curtailed our ability to access some of this stuff. And guess what? They're not able to rebuild those devastating weapon systems to take out those civilians in Ukraine as well. Not a joke. It makes a big difference. These things matter. They matter a great deal. And it creates jobs and it creates industries. It demonstrates we're all in this together. And that's what today's all about. I've never, and I mean this sincerely, I've never been more optimistic in my life about America's future. I mean it sincerely. Not because we have entrepreneurs and people who know what they're doing to lead us to in a completely different era in terms of the kinds of technologies we need, like this man right here. Because I look at it at the younger generation. It's the best educated generation, the least prejudiced, the most engaged, and the least self-serving generation in American history. Look, I hope you feel what I feel standing here today. Pride. Pride in what we can do when we do it together to build a better America. Proving to everyone, proving to the world that our best days are ahead of us. I know every major world leader because of the nature of my job. And before that, when I was vice president, that was my job. And before that, I was chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. And guess what? There's not a single nation in the world, a major nation, that wouldn't trade places with the President of the United States in a heartbeat. Not a joke, think about it. Not a single solitary one. Not a single one. And I talk to these folks all the time, I meet with them all the time. They want to know, are we going to be okay? Because if we're doing well, they think they got a shot to do well too. Well, it's not hyperbole. That's a fact. We just have to keep it going. And I know we can. We just have to remember, for God's sake, who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. And we're the only nation in the world that has come out of the crisis better than when we went into the crisis. And folks, we're going to do it again. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Now I want to invite my good friend, the great partner, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, to the podium, author of the Chips and Science Act, and one of the major reasons we're standing here. Chuck, the podium is yours.